Hello and welcome to another amazing episode of the Heal Deal podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Leona Allen, and I have something very special for you all today. I got a return guest, Dr. Shayne Morris, and he brought one of his friends. I'm going to have them introduce themselves in just a moment. So, we're going to talk about DNA and how we can actually use our genetic makeup to understand our nutritional needs. So, I've been looking forward to this episode for quite some time, but I'm going to get to sit back and relax on this one because I'm going to let Dr. Shayne Morris and Derrick Reynolds really get into this and explain the test the best way they know how. And then we're going to wrap it up and really talk about how we can use this in your health and your life. Welcome to the Heal Deal podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Leona Allen, and I'm here to help you achieve more freedom in your health and your life. I'm the founder of Freedom Health Systems, and I've been a licensed chiropractor and wellness coach for over 2 decades. I've helped men, women, and children transform their lives by removing the physical, chemical, and emotional barriers to natural healing. Every week, I'll be taking you on a journey where you will discover the real truth behind what it takes to heal your mind, body, and soul. Allow me to be your guide as you travel this road to renewed health and a new life. It's time to make a deal with yourself to heal yourself. Please keep in mind that this podcast is for educational purposes only and not to be used as a replacement for medical diagnosis or treatment. With that said, let's begin. So before I give you the stage and let you share this test, can you go ahead and introduce yourselves for those that don't know you?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Dr. Shayne Morris. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm part of Alimentum and Systemic Formulas. And correct, we love research and development. We're always looking at and adopting new technologies. And one of those happens to be the DNA, this idea of nutrigenetics, where we can look at our DNA and personalize our needs based on our genetic background, or from the idea that our cells are driven by genetic information, right? How we perform, how each cell performs. And because we can look at potential issues in our DNA, we call those single nucleotide polymorphisms, we can use those then to direct a very personalized approach to a particular nutrient you might need, whether it be a vitamin or a mineral, or how plants might interact with our particular genetics and our background, and even foods and lifestyles, how well you can detoxify, how well your liver cells work. And, we can use an example today that's like caffeine. Some people metabolize caffeine rapidly, others don't metabolize it well at all. And that dictates, and that should dictate how you treat caffeine and how much you drink and how often you drink it. So that's just an example of how much influence our genetics have on our daily lives. And that's one of the reasons we really embrace this DNA technology. I'm here with Derrick Reynolds, and he's our in-house geneticist, and he's also a doctor, a PhD. And I want to let him, say a few words.
I'll come in the screen here real quick.
Yeah.
So we're pretty excited to share this test with you guys and to kind of explain it. A lot of the concepts can seem intimidating and scary at first, but realistically, it's just kind of like a tool that you can use to help predict things that may happen and kind of nip them in the bud. Like, it's a lot easier to try and prevent things than to try and like fix things afterward. Like, it's a lot easier to do maintenance than to do cleanup, essentially.
Yeah. And I mean, he didn't say this, but his background is in this field, and so it's pretty exciting. He heads up our project for both the DNA, human DNA, and he also heads up the project for the microbiome. And this is his background, and so it's going to be fun to have him on board today, going through the process, helping us take a very complex situation and make it much more digestible. Pardon the pun.
All right. Well, I can't wait to get into this. So you cool nerds out there, get your glasses, get your pen and paper. Let's go ahead and get into this. So I'm going to go ahead and let you take the stage and really share this. And listeners, I'm learning right along with you. This is my first time seeing these, these results, and we're going to keep them anonymous. But I'm learning with you. So, Dr. Shayne and Derrick, I'm going to go ahead and let you have it. And let's go ahead and talk about DNA.
Fantastic.
Are you doing everything right, but still battling fatigue, brain fog, and weight that just won't budge? Here's the truth. It's not your willpower, it's your metabolism, and I can show you exactly how to fix it. I just released a free breakthrough training that reveals why 88% of Americans are metabolically broken and the three-phase system that reverses it. If you're ready to stop spinning your wheels and start seeing real results, go to beginhealingtoday.com. Again, that's beginhealingtoday.com, and you'll also find this link in the description. Now back to the episode.
Okay.
All right. So again, let me remind everybody, the journey begins when we send out a kit. It's called MyDNA, and you do a swab, and the swab collects enough cells from your body that we can then extract the DNA and sequence it. And this sequence becomes your fingerprint, what your genetics look like. And from that, we can analyze, and I'll let Derrick get into this, we can analyze all relevant and actionable genes that relate to nutrition, that relate to lifestyle as best we can, that relate to systems like how well we make DHA and EPA from linoleic acid, how well we metabolize fats, how well our liver enzymes function to metabolize toxins, and so on and so forth. So it's a really exciting frontier. It's gaining some science as well as opportunity. I think we've learned a lot over the last almost 20 years doing this. So it's quite an impactful thing. And as Derrick mentioned, it's such an amazing tool for preventative action. By knowing some of these things, you can adjust your levels. And I even skipped over methylation. Everybody's heard about methylation. And it is one very important aspect of this journey of DNA. And as an example, if you understand your methylation background in genetics, how your body treats methylation, you can adjust for it by providing more methylation supporting materials, like B12 and the folates, the family of folates, and zinc and magnesium and things like that to help regulate these pathways that you inherited through your genetics.
Yeah. And like you said, like the Human Genome Project was finished, 2000? So we have like 25 years of studies now where we can look at these single mutations and they can say, hey, people that have this outcome tend to have this mutation. And so that's how we start to know, like, if you have a certain mutation, that you are more susceptible to having poor methylation or being more at risk for some disease of some kind.
Yeah. It most certainly contributes to our health. And again, it's personalized. And oftentimes, at least in our world, we want to have these plant compounds, these supplements, these vitamins, but we want them to work for everybody. And knowing a little more about each person through like their DNA, then you can adjust dosing, you can adjust the types of supplements you're delivering and when to help support these processes. It's such a better approach than everybody take your B vitamins. This is what we've heard for forever, or everybody do a detox program. And certainly, we're faced with toxins on a daily basis. I mean, we're inundated by them. And yet, not everybody responds to every program equally. Even within families, we see a varying response from a detox program. This way, knowing your DNA, you can make these subtle modifications to improve the journey that each person's on. And that's really one of the powerful things that we can do. And it becomes particularly important, through all of these health concerns that we have, right? These chronic issues that we all face, from neurological decline, GI issues, skin issues. We can learn more about each one of these through our DNA and address them in a very, what we call a precision way or a personalized way. So knowing the DNA gives you a lot of tools, a lot of things to work from. From a clinician's perspective, it's a really great way. we can liken it to perhaps the blood work, right? It's a snapshot, whereas DNA is a lifelong image of who you are, and blood work is a snapshot. Every time you do it, it gives you more information to make adjustments as a clinician, as an example. Whereas the DNA, you can keep returning back to it each time to say, okay, we've learned something new about our lipid pathways or our detox pathways or our eye health, and we can adjust our nutrient intake based on this new knowledge that we gain on a regular basis. We have a really breadth of it now, as he said, 25 years of it, but that's continuing. This is a progressive process where we're going to be learning more and more about how our environment, our nutrition, our diet, our lifestyle affects our DNA and how our DNA affects our lifestyle and our wellness journey.
Right. And like I said, the DNA does not change. So if you have a broken gene in one of your detox pathways, that's never actually going to resolve.
Right.
Like, it's always going to be less efficient. And so you're always going to have to make changes that help supplement that, whether that be through supplementation or dietary, lifestyle, however you want to address the issue. That doesn't go away. It's something that you'll just know that you have, and that's how it's something you have to deal with. And if you deal with it early enough, it may never be a problem for you.
Yeah, it most certainly is. And that's the brilliance of it. That's what we get excited about, is when you know these things, you can adjust your lifestyle, but it is a lifetime process. So once you know certain things about your genetics and you make those adjustments, you must continue to make those adjustments and adaptations the rest of your life. And that is a brilliant way to approach this idea of our wellness journey, right? This idea that we don't need to shoot in the dark all the time and say, well, let's try this. Nope, that didn't work. Let's try this. Nope, that didn't work. And then when someone starts feeling better, how often do we see a person coming back to the clinician saying, well, I did this for a while and I felt good, but then I stopped doing it because I felt good. And well, your genetics can help explain that, because we know from genetics the things that you need to be aware of and cognizant to maintain the rest of your life. And in doing so, you're working towards your health and longevity, right? We call it the health span, to keep us active and well for a lifetime.
And there are many ways to arrive at certain conditions. So like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Okay, that's, like you said, you can keep throwing stuff at it and maybe something will stick. A DNA test can actually just point to like, hey, this person actually struggles with fatigue because they have this mutation. So here is the fix directly for that faulty gene. So you know to supplement with this immediately, and it fixes it.
Yeah.
Versus just kind of being like, hey, try to eat this, try that, try this.
Yeah. And we design a part of our supplements around the DNA test, to be clear. So, we not only embrace it as a technology, but over the last 20 years, we've been developing our supplements, a certain part of our supplements around the DNA testing, so that we can address most, if not all, of these kinds of things through that kind of nutrition. And of course, we're also going to ask people to look at their lifestyle changes as well. I mean, we teach on that. Dr. Leona is right; she's cutting edge trying to do this, and so that she would be able to corroborate the lifestyle changes, behavioral changes, diet changes, as well as certain supplementation that's really targeted for some of these issues. I personally can say that in my own DNA, I produce too much blood. So that creates fatigue over time. And one of the ways in which I can address that is I've got to monitor my iron intake. So as I'm supplementing in my own lifestyle, I don't have to do as much iron as most. Secondly, I have to donate blood occasionally. And that helps manage this fatigue. Otherwise, without the genetic testing, I never would have known that was something that I had. Fatigue would have been, okay, why am I having fatigue right now? It was gone, now it's back. What's going on? Do I need to up my methylation? Do I need to up my energy? Do I need to work out more? I mean, I was trying everything. And in my particular case, there's a genetic component. And now I can manage fatigue through something I would have never known about until DNA testing came along. So I guess we could jump into, unless you have anything else, we could jump into a more an example and walk through some of the ways in which we perform this test, as well as how do we interpret and report on this test so that people can utilize the information subsequent to getting your DNA test done.
Right. The only thing I would add is that the DNA test is a great tool. There are certain things we just know are good for you in general, right?
Yeah.
Like it's always good to eat well, to exercise, all these things. And so the DNA can just help you optimize in the long term on top of those things so like you have a roadmap, right? Yeah. It's something that can help identify a more like specific path.
Right.
After you've completed kind of a generalized wellness routine.
That's a good point. We know enough now about everybody's DNA that we look at, especially in the Americas, that we can create a generalized wellness path, which we've done in the roadmap. Mm-hmm. And then from that, you personalize using your more in-depth readout of the DNA.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great point.
So we can dive into a report that we have here. These are readily available if you contact us. We're moving faster than sometimes our IT can handle, but that's okay. We do have those things. But this one has an interesting spread, and there are some here that are good examples of why the DNA would actually help, and we'll address those when we get there. So if you want to share the screen on that. Okay, so here's an example report that we have generated to kind of show a spread of how the DNA test can be a tool. We'll skip over a title page. Here there's kind of a table of contents that also just kind of has hyperlinks to help you jump around within the PDF. So if we go to the first one, although it doesn't hyperlink inside this screen. So we take a look at your top 20 highest priority or highest risk traits. In the test, we evaluate about 140 conditions or traits, and that's using well over 1,500 of these mutations we talked about, and over 900 of those are individual SNPs. Some SNPs can be used for more than one condition, I guess I'm trying to think of the right way to describe that. So
let me interject real quick for the listeners. When we talk about a mutation, a lot of you have heard about the methylation. So hopefully that one is not new to you, but let's take methylation, for example. It's a error on your DNA, and we all have errors in our DNA. And we call those mutations or single nucleotide polymorphisms. You'll see them as SNPs, and you'll see them in like these reports referred to as SNPs or otherwise a mutation. What that means is that if you have a blueprint of something you want to make, so we have a blueprint of a home, and on that blueprint, somebody leaves out a stair in the staircase, and then the framer goes and makes your staircase, but he leaves out a stair. So there's a gap in the stair. That's the equivalent of what's happening inside of our DNA. Something gets left out or changed or broken. So when you see the staircase, which is the final product, and in our case, a protein, it has this flaw built into it. And that's what impacts our cellular ability. And enough of these flaws can be used to then guide us to how do we compensate for the flaw. So if there's not a stair on the staircase, how does someone put in a temporary stair? And that's really the idea of this idea of supplementing or the diet and lifestyle. We're fixing the staircase because our DNA wasn't capable of generating the proper staircase for us. And I hope that analogy plays okay, but that's what we're doing. And so when you hear SNPs, when you hear polymorphisms, it's an error or a mutation that we need to address using tools that we now have. Sorry.
No, you're fine. And before we jump into some of these, the other thing is to remember is that this is predictive, not deterministic. Like just because you have one of these traits highlighted doesn't mean you're automatically going to have it.
Yeah,
right?
We have control over these things.
So let's say like in the house analogy that there was some rebar left out of the basement. Maybe the basement will collapse, maybe it won't, right? It's just maybe you should reinforce that wall that the rebar was left out of. So I say that because the first one here on our list here of high risk traits is something called APOE Alzheimer's disease. So it's a specific type of Alzheimer's disease caused by two mutations in the APOE gene. The APOE gene, this means that the person has an E4 variant. And what that basically means is that the SNPs that we're talking about, they create a protein that that helps clear out a sticky protein called amyloid beta in the brain. And if you have an E4, you are less efficient at doing that. So you're more likely to have a buildup of these plaques. Again, it's just a risk factor. It's not a diagnosis, but it gives kind of a good reason to look into things that you can do to prevent that, and we'll probably go over that later.
Yeah, we'll use that one to go over later because again,
Okay.
we can mitigate this, right? So we have someone that has the ApoE gene, SNPs and ApoE4, and there are nutrients and lifestyle factors that can compensate or mitigate the genetic piece to this, which is a brilliant thing coming out of the DNA. When you know something, you can then know how to manage it and make sure that you're being as healthy as you possibly can.
Right. So then going down through here, diverticulitis is another high one. We also have musculoskeletal pain. Here's one that people might find interesting is poor keto diet response.
Right.
So what does that mean? That means that this person may not seem the same level of success as the average person would on a keto diet as far as weight loss is concerned. This is just because they don't, let's see if I go back to my notes here. It's because one of the mutations makes it so that you don't feel as full just from fat. And so it's easier to consume more calories than you should, even on a keto diet. And so that's why you don't see the same level of weight loss that you might if this is purely for weight loss. If you're looking to do keto diet for other reasons, I know that there's a few
like brain health,
brain health and that sort of thing. But if you're purely from a weight loss perspective, this person may struggle to lose weight on a keto diet. So that's kind of a nutrigenomic thing. Lung cancer, that would just be a good idea not to smoke.
Fairly common, and that's another common one, yeah.
The poor saturated fat response is hand in hand with the keto diet response. It's the same deal where they don't feel satiety when they eat these saturated fats. It's easy to eat a ton of calories if you're eating saturated fats. Let's see if we can find a few iron overload.
That one's similar to mine, right? Hemochromatosis, iron overload. Can help create too much red blood cell production, and then the outcome of that is, your blood literally thickens over time. And so it's an important note that for me, in fact, on this genetics, that I know that's my genetic background, so I have to manage, my iron and my blood levels, essentially.
Right. And we won't go through every single one of these. So lactose intolerance, the person probably already knows this, but if they don't, that might be a really good clue as to why they may be suffering from certain ailments.
And I want to point out some real nuances here that I don't want to confuse anybody. However, let's look at lactose intolerance. So genetically, someone could be lactose intolerant, but they haven't ever experienced symptoms of lactose intolerance. And one of the brilliant ways in which a person can overcome this is have a microbiota in their gut that's more efficient at metabolizing lactose than someone else's, and that will help minimize any symptoms they experience. So there are people that come out lactose intolerant genetically, but still seem to handle lactose pretty well, and that's because of the help of their microbiota. So if someone really wants to maintain some level of lactose, they can work on their microbiota to overcome this genetic predisposition.
Right. And then there's a few others here, so we'll just kind of skip down. The next thing that we have on this test is it kind of shows how some of these high risk traits may be related. So there's sometimes if there's a, how would you call it, an immune response that isn't ideal, it can cause a host of issues, not just a single thing. And so you can start to see things like Crohn's disease, diverticulitis, and sarcoidosis in this case. These are all things that you would find as a person. You'd be like, oh, my stomach hurts, or I feel like I have bad digestion, when in reality it's an inflammation disease. And so it's something to do with your immune system and not to do with like you're not eating the right foods. Like you would think that, oh, I'm feeling bad because I'm eating the wrong foods, when in actuality your immune system is hyperactive and you need to work on your immune system, not what you're eating. That may include what you're eating, but
at least you know that you have to work on your immune system. Otherwise, it will be a continual issue with no matter what food you're eating. It could come and go randomly, and you'll never know what food until we work on the immune system first. Yeah, for sure.
So these just kind of give a general broad overview of how these different high-risk traits may be related. This section goes into more detail if you're so inclined to know exactly why something is broken in one of these high-risk traits. Like, for example,
this is for all the nerds in the group.
So you don't need to
deep dive.
You don't need to understand this in order to know that, like, oh, I have fatigue and I'm at high-risk DNA for fatigue. If they're extra curious, they can go in and read this, and it will tell them the mechanism of why that would be. In this case, it's saying that there's a dysregulation of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which that would lead you,
axis.
that would lead you towards some sort of potentially a supplement that would address those things.
Yep. The HPA axis. We've all talked about that for years. I mean, decades. In fact, the HPA axis was a topic back even during my grandfather's era. We didn't know how, but there was many diagnoses says we need to work on your HPA axis. This happens to be another really brilliant way to identify a part of the HPA axis that we can actually zero in on and work with people's fatigue as it relates to their genetics of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So it's really exciting that we take it from a concept to results. And hopefully most clinicians will find this exciting because there's never been a time where the HPA axis wasn't somehow involved in some of these fatigue issues.
Right, but again, this kind of gets back to the specificity of, like, fatigue is an extremely general symptom. Like, is it because I drink too much or not enough caffeine? Is it because I have thyroid issues? And you could go round and round in circles and not realize that, oh, it's actually an adrenal problem.
Yeah.
And if your practice doesn't focus on that specifically, you may constantly struggle to try and find a solution for this person's fatigue, whereas somebody who starts with adrenal treatments would solve it immediately. But having this test, you would know which thing to give them, and
where to begin. Yeah.
And that would, in addition to helping the patient more quickly, it would kind of engender their trust as well, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You can
help them.
You know what you're doing. You know what you're talking about, not just, like I said, throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks.
For sure.
So that's this section here. We won't go through all of them. Like I said, each one is very specific, but very interesting if you're willing to look at it and maybe even do a little bit of Googling if you don't understand what a word or a gene is there.
It's a good nighttime read.
Yeah.
First few nights it'll put you to sleep, which is a good thing. We want more sleep in our lives. Otherwise it really is very informative for people that want to dig deeper into their health, right?
Right, and it does include some sort of recommendation. Those are general. That's just in case you don't know what you want to do for that. Mm-hmm. If you have an idea of how to solve something, it's just there as extra. This next table in yellow is just miscellaneous SNPs that are high drivers of conditions, but in this person are not necessarily so high that they are
like a high priority,
making that trait in general a high priority. However, if somebody does come in and says, "Hey, I'm having struggles with what my joints hurt,"
yeah,
this SNP here for this mutation for rheumatoid arthritis, that might be something that you can look at and be like, oh, I see why that may be. So here it's saying like you need to make sure you have enough zinc. Now in my head, I never would have thought like, hey, my joints hurt, I should eat more zinc.
Right. Yeah. It's not intuitive.
Right. So it's really kind of a cool tool for that sort of thing. So down here is where you get the generalized advice for each one of these high-risk conditions. So in the case of the Alzheimer's disease one that we had talked about, it tells you things that you should do from a nutrition standpoint and things, at least one thing to avoid. If you want to go over
So
that.
in this case with the ApoE, we want to add in choline-rich foods, which can be in eggs, liver. We want to add in potentially some phytoestrogens, like from soybeans, and there's others for brain cell. A lot of people are scared of phytoestrogen, but they really can be incredibly important for certain people. And in this case, they can be important. We want to work on membrane health as well as mitochondrial health for sure. There's been another, rich in the DHA and EPA. There's been some research done on these oils, right? That come from krill, fish, or algae. We want to add a lot more antioxidant-rich foods. So these are the colorful fruits and vegetables. Now we want to add these, initially slowly and in moderation, because some of these can be, they can change the microbiome as well if they're not already eating some really colorful fruits and vegetables. So we want to ease into it for someone that their diet hasn't been enriched with these kinds of products. But once you get into these, you adapt quickly, and they are very beneficial for protecting brain cells. And the ApoE situation. And then, of course, we want to reduce inflammation as much as possible.
Right. And so this section is very, what would you call it, naturalistic, where
holistic.
We don't really talk about what supplements to take specifically in this section. It's just foods you should eat, activities you should engage in or avoid, depending on the condition. I think we just ran out of room on this one, but so like something that would lifestyle wise would be something like brain games, that
brain
sort of
games,
thing.
Exercise for sure. Always doing some moderate exercise, depending on the person. That they can do it to their level, but certainly exercise as well.
And so you see, there's a wealth of information on all of these things, and so you don't have to try and do every single thing here. A lot of times you'll be able to help the person focus on the things that they think are most important and things that you find that would be most important for them too. Like if the person doesn't smoke and it says lung, I would just skip over that one.
Yeah.
Or and this is another note to go over too, is that sometimes a person's physical appearance or
maybe present symptoms
their symptomology are maybe in direct conflict with what's listed here on the DNA. And people are like, well, how's that possible? Well, even if you are not at risk for obesity, but you eat 5,000 calories a day, you can destroy any genetic predisposition. And it's kind of like the reverse of what we're trying to do, where it's like, hey, I have something that's broken, I'm going to do these things to try and fix it. It's the same, whereas if you have something that's not broken, you can break it pretty easily through diet and lack of exercise and that sort of thing.
Good examples, if you don't have a lot of detox enzymes that have a problem or are broken, have mutations, but you're exposing yourself to inordinate amounts of toxins, it's not going to matter, right? You're going to overwhelm a healthy system. So it works both ways, and this is just another way to help on the preventative side and to know ahead of time what to be more concerned about.
Yeah, so that's just something to realize, is that sometimes people will say like, well, I have this thing, but it doesn't show up on my genetics. And you're like, well, that's because that's something that's been done over the course of your lifetime, not because you were predisposed to it. So then this next section, this is where we come out of the nutrition and lifestyle into the more direct supplementation. So we have a recommender system that goes in and basically calculates for you the most useful supplements for your entire DNA test.
Right.
So for this person, neurogenic pops up number one. That makes sense because if you look right here, it even talks about how it promotes healthy expression of APOE, which is the exact gene that was broken in the DNA test. Again, it's popping up with neuro, probiotic, and a prebiotic, the eubiomic and superfoods. Again, helping with brain health. An omega-3, that's kind of like a dual purpose one here, where it's helping with some of those inflammation factors, but it's also good for the brain health, especially with the amyloid plaques. And then immunogenic, that goes again towards that inflammation immune system thing we had talked about. But also, I noticed earlier that it talked about a risk for macular degeneration. And in immunogenic, it provides the essential vitamins and minerals for the REDS2 study, if people are familiar, essentially to help prevent macular degeneration.
And clinically, that REDS2 study these ingredients, these natural products, amazingly, were the most effective approach to macular degeneration beyond any of the drugs they studied. And it was a very large study. They did an AREDS1 and a 2. And so we, of course, included that into the immunogenic. And it also is good for the brain. Obviously, with the eyes being a part of the brain, it's critical that we supplement and really help the immune part of the brain. And that's where this immunogenic comes in.
Right. So here you have the test. You go through and see what your high risks are, how they might be related, any deep dive stuff that you're really interested about, like, hey, I'm really interested about how this mutation may work in my body and how to fix it. And then we give you the general recommendations and the nutrigenomic information. Then we give you the supplementation information. The last part of the report is just the description. So if you're unsure of what something means, here we have provided a paragraph so that you can read more about, like, he said, what is macular degeneration? What does that mean? What even is that? Shayne knew immediately that it meant in the eyes. Most people might know that that's in the eyes.
Yeah.
So you can read through that paragraph and understand what each one of these conditions is about. And again, those are hyperlinked in the report as well.
Yeah. So in summary, that's exactly right. We break it down into these important actionable chunks. Some of them are strictly, deep dives or education. Others are ways in which we can change our behavior, change what we get into our body to affect a positive outcome here. And that's really the purpose of this test, is to change the outcome for people to get into a better place in the end, right? A more wellness, healthy place in their lives.
And so we've tried to design the test to be as flexible as possible. So you can be somebody who wants to go super deep and really understand the genetics and really get into it and dig into the weeds. Or you can be a person who has no clue about genetics and doesn't actually want to learn about them. And that is fine. We've done that work for you. We just say, hey, swab your cheek, send it in. These are the things you should do.
Indeed. Yeah, we want everybody doing it. So yeah, we've designed it for all people.
Yeah,
for sure.
Wow, what an absolute game changer. That was fascinating. I almost forgot I was hosting a show back here. I got me a page of notes and everything, but I do have some great takeaways. I think Derrick said this, that it's predictive and not deterministic, because some of those things on there is like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
If you are fatalistic, you can get really scared really fast by looking at some of those things.
And we want to discourage the fear factor for sure, right? It's an actionable data set, it's not meant to be frightening. It's meant to say, hey, look, you have these predispositions. Let's work on them. We intellectually know that we're working on them anyway if we're in this space, right? We always want to be working on the health of our brain, our gut, our lungs, our eyes. This is something that we all talk about on a daily basis. This makes it actionable to say, if you have these predispositions, you work on those, and you always work on those. You never stop working on your brain. If you have the ApoE, that is always something that you want to be aware of and working on it and taking care of it. Never take it for granted. So yeah, it's not deterministic.
Yeah, and there's certain things in there that also sound scary. So like on mine came back as being a high risk for brain cancer. And my wife started freaking out. She was like, "Oh my gosh." She's like, "How come you're not freaking out?" And I was like, "Well, because I know that most of brain cancers are in children, so I'm not a child anymore. So I'm already past that." And then the actual incidence rate of brain cancer in adults is like, I don't know, 1 in 10,000, 1 in 100,000. So like if it's doubled now, I'm at 1 in 5,000. I don't know. Those are pretty good odds in my favor.
And
So
especially if you're taking care of your brain,
yeah,
exposures, toxins,
yeah.
etc.
So there's things like that where if it's a super rare thing, you still, even if you have doubled or even tripled your chance, you still have a low chance of having that thing happen to you. Whereas there are other things in there where like, I'm trying to think of an example. So like the methylation, like half the population has problems with their methylation. So if you pop up as having trouble with methylation, like, yeah, you should worry about that as far as you should,
Yeah.
and how to fix
And
that,
there's
because you probably are going to have problems with it.
and a lot of the genes in the detox pathways, I think those are particularly important because a lot of our genetics and a lot of the enzymes that work on removing toxins from our body, transforming them in what we call phase 1 and phase 2, and then we try to eliminate them. We eliminate them mainly through our bowel movements, our urine, followed by our lungs and skin. And if any of those are broken, we can say, oh my gosh, you're not removing, let's say PCBs or pesticides as efficiently. We need to be aware of that. We better be thinking more about organic foods, more about helping to stimulate, glutathione production and glucuronidase. However, the reason that becomes more important is because it's not only our exposure to these things through our diet and water and air, but we now need to start thinking about our bacteria in our gut, because they could actually be producing toxins 24 hours a day that our body is busy eliminating. So it's a much greater consideration if you have a lot of detox pathways that are broken, that you be very diligent and actively helping to prevent that and manage those detox pathways, because toxins are now everywhere. So we need to be a lot more aware of that. So I love looking at the detox genetics. That's kind of one of my favorite places to look into people's DNA, because I know it's under pressure all the time. Now, so is the brain and other tissues, but the detox pathways are under a large amount of pressure. They're always having to work.
All right, we've been talking a lot. What's your next question? If you have one.
Sorry.
No, this is good. And then another thing that I loved is that it's tools to work with your biology, because we live in such a society where everybody's guessing, or they're just hearing about the latest trend, or it's a one size fits all. Especially when you talked about keto. I knew this intuitively, that keto doesn't work for everybody. And then when you did that presentation, it's like, aha, I mean, that was magical. So just knowing, having an idea of what would work and what wouldn't, that was phenomenal.
Yeah, we love that that was actually an aha moment for me as well. When we started seeing this, I'm like, oh my goodness, this explains. I even think for Derek and his personal world, he's like, oh,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, we did that again. Going back to my wife, we both went on a keto thing. So we're going to Hawaii. You want to have the beach body type stuff, and we ate the same things. We were super diligent. I lost like 30 something pounds. She lost like 2. And let's just say she wasn't super happy about that. So
yeah, her genetics don't lend her to that diet, right?
Did the test cover fasting? Because I know fasting is big, intermittent fasting, long-term fasting. Did that test cover if anyone would be good at fasting or not?
we don't have it
I
in there
don't
right
think
now.
anything is in there right now on fasting. And I mean, Derek can speak to more to this, but I think, fasting is in general, in many ways, very beneficial in a lot of ways. Regardless of our genetics, there's a lot of benefits, even to the microbiome for some people. There may be some data out there, but I've not seen it yet.
Yeah, a lot of these, like you said, if it's trendier, it's newer, which means there's less studies. But that's the cool thing about this test, is that once you've done the test, we can continue to add upgrades to it, and you don't have to like re-swab or recheck. The technology that we've used, we just add say, hey, we've done the research now, and now we can reliably tell you about whether fasting is good for you.
And that would be on the report. So when we launch a new update, for example, and we email all the clinicians, they can have their patients log back in and see the new changes, because it's just going to be there because we already have the DNA information. We can update it. You don't have to go through the whole process all over again.
Yeah, so it's only going to get better, essentially, or more broad. So, yeah.
Wow. So I love that this information gives you more control and more preventative, so you can actually see what you're working with. That's why this is such a game changer. So, I know people are going to reach out and say, how do I get my test? So how would this be incorporated in like a program? Is this something that should be done first off? Because I do blood work and hormone testing. How should this be incorporated with these other types of tests?
I would incorporate it as soon as possible, because you can always refer back to it once it's done. If you've already got people on programs and you incorporate it later, that works perfectly fine too. I mean, for as long as we've been doing, blood work and, as you said, hormone, urine, all the different types of tests, we just incorporate it integrate it in as soon as possible. I think the biggest challenge we've seen is just getting, like you're doing today, getting the education out there so that it doesn't get overwhelming. Right? We want to really make it.
People don't want to
digestible.
Use it. Like, I don't know genetics. Like, it's okay. You don't have to.
Yeah, and so as clinicians, I think, the getting educated, going through a few reports, and it starts to become more comfortable, just like blood work does. The functional side of blood work took a few years to really, I think, become more adaptable and more adapted by clinicians, because it deviated from the ranges that the old school, blood labs had, where they would say, well, if you're in this range, you should be feeling fine. And everybody that's, in the functional say, no, if you're at the bottom of that range or the top of that range, that certainly for that individual could be a problem. It could be, they're not ideal. Yeah, they're not in a disease state, but they're certainly not necessarily feeling good. That took years to really, get out there to the world. And I think DNA is the same way. We want to get people learning it and using it, and it'll become more accessible. And even our reports are changing over time to make it more accessible.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the reports. Very easy to read. You had me cracking up, saying it'd be like help you sleep at night.
Yeah.
So that was funny.
It's a good. It's probably as good as melatonin for some people.
Yeah, very detailed. Love it. I love it. So I'm definitely going to start incorporating it in my practice, and I will have the information in the show notes for those who are interested in how to get your DNA results, because I believe, not I think, it is a game changer, and it's really going to help answer a lot of these questions as far as what works and what doesn't. And I appreciate you too for really taking the time out your busy schedule to explain this and educate the listeners. And I think education is so important with what I do. And I appreciate, you're the owner of the company and you're taking time to do that. So that means a lot about who you are and what you represent. You're very approachable, you're easy to talk to, and you're always there to help the people that use your products and testing to help others. So once again, thank the both of you for making yourselves available to teach our clients and listeners. So
yeah, we're grateful and we appreciate being here. And Derrick is the point person. So yeah, as we move forward, I'm sure you'll have email interactions with Derrick as well for anybody doing this, because he provides the test now. And in our version 3, that test you saw today will be online immediately. But right now it gets provided by Derrick to each DNA person. Yeah.
Okay.
So you'll just.
Right, well, I'll get all that information when we close, and I'm looking forward to learning more about this and continue to study this and make this a part of helping the people that I work with.
No,
so sure. What else was I going to say? Any closing comments? I'll make sure I get that information.
No, we're excited to talk
Okay.
about DNA, to talk about cells, all the nerdy fun stuff that
Yes.
Yeah.
it's really exciting.
Like I said, it is unusual. Whereas this is like I said, the boss, but he's a scientist at heart. So it's a lot less about the number crunching and a lot more about the let's help people in a thorough way. So it's kind of fun. So.
Yes, it is fun. So, this is awesome. So thank you once again. Don't be surprised if I send you another message like, can you come back again to
Yeah,
talk
no
about
worries. Yeah,
yeah, I
fun.
need to just have you on the calendar once a month. Shayne
Yeah,
Morris Day. Dr. Shayne Day. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up so you can get back to your busy schedule. But once again, listeners, thank you for joining in. Let me know your questions and what you want to learn more about and what you think of this test. And if you want to get your own, you know where to find me. And until next time, go out there and achieve more freedom in your health and your life. Take care. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, seal the deal to heal by leaving a review, subscribing to the podcast, and sharing with a friend. Thanks again, and we'll continue the journey next week.